So as of January, if you have student loans, if you have any federal student loans, whether you think they're going to be forgiven, whether you think some of it's, if you have student loans, you should be prepared to pay your student loan payment
in January.
In your loan payment in January. Student loan forgiveness. This is a quick, down and dirty. It's a kind of breaking news special podcast. We're going to try to get it out as quick as we can. And
yeah, hopefully provide you guys with some information that they might not be talking about on the news or, Yeah,
we want to make sure it's, we're trying to get out information like reliably from a reliable source. Hopefully we're reliable to you. Yep. And we've done some homework. Here's the thing. There is still going to be a ton of information. The devil's in the details kind of thing. We don't have all of it. We are taking a lot. Most of our information here is coming from White House press releases. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that is factual. Other sources, we've pulled a couple pieces from like the New York Times, which, if they're doing due diligence, they should have a couple different, they've verified a couple different ways, any sources that they've used. So just understand, we will continue to talk about this. If you are a subscriber to our Vital Signs and Education program, then we are going to do a private call to answer individual questions with every subscriber. So if you're listening, if you're subscribed, if you're a client of ours, be on the lookout. You should receive an invitation to a virtual kind of town hall relatively soon, probably sometime in the next week to 2 weeks. That being said, we want to jump in. We have kind of a bit of an agenda to get through. So one, we're going to give you guys a warning to heed. Two, we're going to dig through some of the most important details, answer some of those top questions. And then we're going to have a few quick discussions at the end. We're going to talk about impacts to cash flow. We're going to talk about impacts to, in the near term, to our economy. And then we're going to talk about what could potentially derail student loan forgiveness for you or for everyone. Mm-hmm. So, Josh, what's our warning?
So the warning is, and we finally got this quote right, is don't count your chickens before they hatch.
I like the other one. Don't count your eggs before they hatch. I don't know why that came in mind. Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
We've got a good story for you guys in a minute. We'll go over. It's the timeliness of it was perfect.
It was perfect. Here's the thing, guys, is, again, the devil's in the details. This is going to be a process, and we're relying on the government to be wildly efficient. So most of you guys probably know I was in the military for a long time. I have seen probably one of the most efficient parts of our government, the military. I lived in that environment, and I'll tell you, even though it's the most efficient probably of our entire government, is wildly inefficient sometimes, especially when you're coming up with something new to do. So, first things first, fact number one, that deferral of student loan interest and payment has been pushed back. Most of you know now.
To about January, right?
Yep, it's through December 31st. So as of January, if you have student loans, if you have any federal student loans, whether you think they're going to be forgiven, whether you think some of it's, if you have student loans, you should be prepared to pay your student loan payment
in January.
In your loan payment in January. Okay, so that is point number one. You do have a little bit more time. President Biden said he's going to extend this his quote was one last time. Mm-hmm. So we don't expect it to be extended after that. But the purpose of this extension was to give the Department of Education time to set up the processes to get it done. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they do. But I have seen far too many times the government say, hey, we need something in place by this date, and then things need to get extended.
Right.
Be prepared to make your payment January 1st. So
I guess the first thing we can go over is what qualifies you for
guys,
these student loans.
Yeah, a great resource for you guys to pull up. I printed it out here, and we'll be going through it. But there is just a fact sheet. You can Google like White House student loan forgiveness fact sheet, and a briefing room press statement will pop up. You can kind of read through a lot of the details there. There's a few other sources, like I said, we're used to answer some of the more, like some of the other critical questions here. But you're saying the first point is who qualifies, right?
Right.
So biggest thing is under $125,000 of income
for single filers.
$250 for married filing jointly. All right. Was that an adjusted gross income number? It is adjusted gross.
Yeah.
So what they're going to be looking at is essentially that, like, after deductions. So let's say I make $130,000 and I defer some of my money to my 401k and I get a standard deduction. I will be under
You'll qualify
the $125,000 of income. So adjusted gross income,
that's going to give you a $10,000 forgiveness.
Yep.
And then there's the other one with the Pell Grant.
If you have Pell Grants, if you went to college and had Pell Grants given to you, you will qualify for $20,000. Same qualification, still under $125K of income, still under $250 if you're married. But if you had any Pell Grant money given to you, you will qualify for up to $20,000.
And so far from what we've seen or read, and we had to do a lot of digging to find this, is they're going off of income figures from either 2020 or 2021 tax returns. Again, this is an evolving thing.
Yep, that's one of the facts we had to pull from New York Times.
So, take it with a grain of salt right now, but I think that's what they're going to end up doing.
So let's talk about this process. Okay, so when we repay student loans, there is a part of the process currently where if I am basically a low wage earner, I can apply through the Department of Education to get a reduced repayment schedule, which is currently right now capped at 10% of discretionary income.
It's based on income.
Yeah, they have a formula. You go to the website, you fill out this application for kind of a reduced payment plan. They tell you how much you have to pay. There's your payment. If you have been on something of that nature with the Department of Education, they already have your income filed. So right now, again, based on some of these numbers in this White House press, there's about, I think 40 million people that will have some sort of student loan forgiveness. And they're estimating somewhere around 8 million of those people to already have their income verified with the Department of Education, which is cool. Okay. So here's what I foresee the process to be. At some point, the Department of Education will have an application on their website. You'll probably go there and need to verify yourself, probably by typing in like social and date of birth or something of that nature. When you get in, it'll either say, hey, your income's already verified and you do or you do not qualify.
Right.
And then it'll explain like the timeline. You can expect to see your adjusted student loan balance updated by such and such date. If you don't have your student loan if you do not have your income verified, you will click into that application. It'll let you know they do not have income data for you, and you will need to upload probably a previous year tax return, probably from 2021 or 2022, probably the last time that you filed your taxes. So there's some other possibilities in there, but everything else, if they try to do this off, and the reason why we're having this conversation is because sometimes, like we have at least one client made approximately $124,000 at adjusted gross income in 2021. He got a bit of a raise, which we're awesome. We're all excited about it. But he just got the raise like last month.
Right.
So this year, He'll have a couple extra months of higher income, so he'll probably have an adjusted gross income of like 126,000.
Right.
Right. So he's crossing his fingers and wondering what to do.
Yeah.
So for him, there is a chance that they will do some sort of current income verification that will be wildly difficult. We're all like in almost every facet and almost every time the government has ever tried to verify some level of income, or banks or anyone, it's typically off of a previous year tax return. So expect if they do not have income verified for you, you will need to upload a previous year tax return. Okay.
And on the income driven repayment plan, you talked about it's going from 10 to 5%.
So we didn't talk about that yet, but it is. You're right. So just to be clear, again, there is already a process through the Department of Education. If I owe $40,000 of student debt or student loans, and let's say my payment was going to be $1,000 a month, totally making these numbers up. This is totally making it up. Yep. But let's say based on my income, I was only making like $2,500 a month, right? I can go and apply for kind of a modified repayment plan. As of now, through their formula, they come up with a discretionary spending amount,
which is basically anything you make on after you pay for rent, food, your essentials.
And then with that, 10% of that discretionary amount is to be applied towards student loans. So let's say my discretionary amount was $1,000. Instead of paying the $1,000 a month that I would otherwise need to pay, I'm only going to have to pay $100.
Right.
That's what the 10% cap. That part of this plan that is being offered, or one of the pieces of this agenda, is to reduce the cap from 10% to 5%. So in that same exact scenario, monthly payments $1,000. I go to the Department of Education. I file my application for modified repayment plan, and instead of paying $100 a month, I would only pay $50 a month.
Let's go to like questions that the majority of people are asking right now. So the first, one of the biggest questions is, do all student loans qualify for loan forgiveness?
So no. Right. The easiest gauge. So we'll go through a couple of things. So first of all, this is for federal student loan forgiveness.
Yep.
The easiest gauge is that if you have had a student loan that you have had to been paying, or has still been accumulating interest, it is most likely not part of the federal loan program. So like through COVID, the past year, you've been making payments, and everybody's like, oh, I don't have to make payments because my federal loans have been paused. And you're like, oh, I should have not had these private loans. Like, you're probably still, none of that's going to be forgiven.
Yep.
Right. So it's federal loans only. So if you have enjoyed the hiatus from paying your student loans, those are the ones that
more than likely you qualify.
Yeah, more than likely. So again, it'll be part of, through that application process, you'll see what loans of yours are eligible. We had a client yesterday already call and say they got an email from their private lender saying that they do not qualify for that loan.
Right.
So a lot of your private lender people are probably already in communication with you, letting you know, hey, this doesn't affect you. You still have to pay.
Yeah.
So we look forward to your next payment. So it is federal loans. For parent loans, there's the family. What is it?
FFEL.
FFEL. That loan does not qualify for forgiveness from what we're seeing now. The PLUS loan, which is the parent, it's PLUS loan. It's for parents.
Yep.
That
is eligible.
That is eligible potentially.
That is eligible.
If you have a PLUS, if you're a parent and you have a PLUS loan, do look into it. Okay. And again, your individual circumstances may qualify or disqualify you from this. We don't know all of that for sure yet, but do look into it if you do have a PLUS loan. There are approximately 40-ish million borrowers that will have some level of forgiveness, which is a pretty significant number. So this is something that everybody's interested in. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to talk about. And I just thought that was an interesting fact there. So, okay, so what's the next question?
So the other question was, if I still owe on student loans and I get 10,000 or 20,000 forgiven and I still owe, will my payments be the same or will they be lowered? And I believe the answer is they will be lowered based, again, depending on what your repayment plan is, because there's multiple repayment plans.
Yeah, so you should be able to kind of work through and do some sort of potential reconsolidation there. Mm-hmm. That will be on the individual to follow up. I think it's very important to consider your options after this process is complete. A lot of people, the sad part is many people have reconsolidated or, refinanced their college debt from federal debt because it was, 6+% interest
6.8% plus whatever
into a private like loan, because they were eligible for like maybe 3-4% interest.
Right.
And so they really were making what, by all accounts, like an
pretty intelligent decision. Yeah.
They were doing what they felt was the right thing for them to do. Mm-hmm. And so now they're kind of like almost being punished for doing something smart. I would say that if you are carrying student loans, call us, call somebody, call a financial professional and talk through your options. Let the dust settle on this. Mm-hmm. Let the $10,000 be forgiven. But if you're still carrying debt after this, it is so important to understand how the debt impacts the bigger picture, right? How does debt as a vital sign impact all my other financial vital signs? So those conversations are wildly important, because the next question is this is great. What's next? How do we go from where we are today to where we ultimately want to be?
Which I think that goes right into the next.
Well, question. I think that just, talk to somebody, figure out your options. You might end up you might be stuck in a place where they won't readjust your payment and you'd be stuck with that same payment.
Right.
But there's probably going to be some process. There is the process. If you are struggling kind of to make ends meet, look into that capped repayment plan, because you'll get the $10,000 forgiveness and then you'll fill out the formula sheet and you might see that you only need to repay, $50 or $100 a month. And there's also some other great pieces of that, because like some people are like, well, if I owe $1,000 a month, but I'm only paying $50, isn't my interest going to be kind of a runaway thing? There's some other pieces to that where the interest actually gets redacted kind of from it's a prorated. So like whatever that $50 represents, a prorated amount will represent the interest, a prorated amount will be principal, but then everything else that would be interest kind of just goes away. So it's all part of the process there. Look into it if that's something you are worried about or concerned about because of cash flows. We'll talk more about cash flows in a minute.
So that's what I was going into next was, how does this affect cash flow?
There we go.
That's the next one.
Let's, I just want to make sure. I feel like there's something else. Taxability. So under the American Rescue Plan, that whatever was the way it was written in there is that this debt forgiveness is not a taxable event. So one of my first concerns was like, man, if this is happening at the end of the year, are people going to have income or cash to be able to pay a higher tax bill? That is debunked, thankfully. So you will not owe any taxes as presented right now. You will not owe any taxes on the forgiveness of up to $10,000 or up to $20,000.
Okay, so now let's go into how this affects cash flow.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think I want to jump ahead. Let's come back to that, because let's talk about some economic impacts first, and then because I think that'll segue into helping understand why we're presenting this. So, in what is going on right now, there's a lot of conversations of, we're so, sometimes we get so caught up in like not being concerned for people, just concerned for other things. But, a a lot of the discussion right now is like, is this the right time? Like, I know my neighbor who has student loans is wildly anxious and can't sleep at night, but we have inflation. Is now the right time for my neighbor to not be anxious? And let's talk about what is the economic impact of student loan forgiveness. So first off, if you have federal student loans, you have not been paying federal student loans, and you have not had any interest added to your federal student loans for a couple years now, right? There has been deferral after deferral. This has been an effort from two very, very, very different presidential regimes, right?
Yep.
So it's not a political thing.
Yep.
It has been the right thing to do for people to say, hey, times are tough. COVID's hard. People have to work uniquely. Incomes have changed. Costs have gone up. So let's just say, hey, we're deferring your payment and deferring interest. And that decision has been kind of punted down the field time and time again until now, right? And we actually got one more punt down the field, but only until December 31st. So as far as economic impact, guys, if I had, let's say that my student loans previously, so prior to COVID, my student loans were $500 a month. And then all of a sudden, I haven't been paying $500 a month. The economic impact, the demand increase happened a couple years ago, right? The fact that we are turning back on student loans in January is going to take money out of the economy and put it back into a debt payment. Right. So in one argument there, because this is like, again, $10,000 is not wiping out anybody's.
Right.
I've seen some stats presented by different people about how many people like owe money and their debt is getting completely forgiven.
Right.
In our business, managing the people that we manage, it's a rather small sample, but it's not even like 5%.
Yeah, it's not even close.
It's not even 5% of people.
Such a small amount.
People walking away completely from student loans.
Right, such a small amount.
Even if your student loans are getting completely forgiven, you already haven't been paying students. So it's
for a
not
couple
like,
of years. Yeah,
it's not like I've been paying $500 a month and then all of a sudden I don't have to pay $500.
You haven't been paying that for a couple of years.
I haven't been paying it.
Yeah.
So the economic impact, which is again part of the design, was to stimulate the economy through COVID. We wanted people spending money because we were in a situation where it was hard to navigate and businesses were hurting. So hey, stop making your education payment and start spending it on stuff. Right. So we don't see an impact there. On the other hand, what we do see as a potential is, one, this is euphoric for some people. Like this is like, honestly, I was kind of being a little critical about, is it the right time, and talking about some people's like neighbors or family members being wildly anxious about their student debt. Debt causes anxiety. Debt is a problem for so many Americans. Like the American Psychology Association, the APA, they list stress as being like the number one like enemy to Americans, like the number one critical element or illness to Americans. And the causes of those stress are like their finances, their health, and their finances. Yeah. So finances is number two. The leading cause of financial stress is debt. Right. So the fact that all of a sudden $10,000 of my debt is potentially gone very, very quickly is euphoric. What that also did for me is it made me potentially, let's say between my mortgage, my car payment, and my student loans, no bank was going to offer me any more money. Right. I was an unloanable person. Right. Now all of a sudden that 10,000 is gone, and I can get a loan again. Right. And
this is what I think is going to happen.
And I got a little euphoria. Well, yeah. So I think that there could be, and we're going to, when we get back to the cash flow conversation, we'll talk about that. But there could be, on the other hand, an increased like application for, a boat.
Right.
We spoke to a client yesterday who was like, I've been waiting to buy a boat.
Yep.
But now that I know this is happening, I'm just going to go ahead and pull the trigger now.
I qualify for the Pell Grant. I get $20,000 taken off. I'm going to buy the boat early.
Yeah, I'm going to get it a little bit earlier than what I thought.
That's right.
Now, here's the thing. Let's say that I did have student loans. Let's say for 2 years I have not been paying my $500 student loan bill. Let's say that because it's been 2 years, that cash, that $500 that was
what have you been doing with it?
It's kind of just dissolved into like a thing. So I spend some of it. I've bolstered my savings just a little bit, but not all 500, right? So what happens is if I go buy this boat, what do all of a sudden I have? Well, I have a $500, boat payment, right? I've just swapped it. And do I have the cash flow for a $500 boat payment?
Right.
That's to be determined, right? Like you got to know that about yourself.
Yep.
So will it actually will it hurt us on the inflation front? And I'd argue that turning back on student loan payments of any kind in January is going to actually have the counter. It's going to be a positive effect on inflation, meaning demand will go down because all of a sudden I have a new bill. And that's why it is so important. And we can't say this enough. If you have any student loan, we have a client right now who is otherwise, from everything we see, going to qualify for student loan forgiveness. And she has roughly $6,000 of student loans. So in theory, and from what we can see in the rules, she will not have another student loan payment for the rest of her life. We're still advising her to be prepared to make a payment in January. Right. So don't count your chickens before they hatch there. Again, the economic impact, time will tell. I don't know. I just think it's important to think through kind of both sides of the scenario. I know people are wildly emotional.
A lot can go on from now until January.
Yeah, people are wildly emotional, thinking like, oh, this is just going to put all this extra money out into the economy for spending, and it's already out there. Like nobody's making payments right now. And if they're making payments right now, it's because they have private loans, and they're still going to have those payments.
That's not going to change.
It's not going to change. So the only implication would be is if people choose to, they become loanable, they take out a loan, but it means they were already having the cash flow available to make a new payment,
and now they're just taking on more debt.
So that kind of brings us to the next thing, which is understanding how student loan forgiveness can and will affect your cash flow. We're going to talk through a couple scenarios there. I think it's really, really important to just understand, like, cash flows are a series of 4 different financial vital signs for us. So when I have money coming in, if I get my payment, if I get a paycheck,
it's going to 4 places.
Some of it's going to go pay taxes, right? If you're W-2, you may not actually see that process,
but it's happening.
But it's happening. Yeah. Some of your paycheck goes to pay your tax bill. Some of your money goes to pay your debt payment. So that is your mortgage, that is your car, that is your student loans. Some of your money just gets spent on stuff. We call that burn rate. Burn rate is just anything. It could be, it's some of the things you have to pay for: food, water, gas, essentials, your utilities, your cell phone, your hobbies, your shoes, fishing lures, like whatever it is. Like some of it goes to that, and then some of it goes to savings. Hopefully, right? So that's the thing. Is like, Josh, like, what is it about student loans going away? What's the risk? What could go wrong? $10,000 of debt. Yeah. The federal government just pushing a button, making a decision and saying, hey, it's $10,000 is significant. Or 20. Yeah. Significant amount of money. So I kind of want to deliver like a personal charge to every person listening and anybody in my sphere. I will say this: if you are being impacted in a positive way, this is an opportunity. This is almost like an atonement for the racket that is college systems, college structure. We did a college call.
Right.
It is a racket. It is a broken system. Inflation average, long-term inflation average 8%.
Yeah.
Like, there's $1.6 trillion of student debt out there. There's right at $1 trillion in college endowment funds.
Yep.
So taxpayers are footing the bill for this college racket. The colleges that I went to are still calling me, asking me for donations every year.
Yep.
They're still going to inflate it to 8%. They're still going to inflate college at 8% a year after this.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, like, my taxes aren't changing right now. Who's going to foot the bill for this kind of racketeering? Like this terrible thing is our kids, right? And when by the time my daughter gets to college, guess what? College is going to be more expensive. Mm-hmm. So I would say this: if you're in the position to be forgiven for student debt, let's make it mean something, right? Let's look at it and say, okay, I have been thinking about starting a business for a long time. All of a sudden, I'm debt free. Instead of thinking about the new car or the new watch or the big trip or whatever, how about, like, let's fix my cash flows so I can open my own business, so I can become an entrepreneur, so I can make the leap that I've been waiting to, like, maybe it's purchasing a house finally. I've been renting for too long. Make it impactful. Don't make this mean nothing. And so with that, what are smart decisions?
If you're going to take because you're now loanable, your debt to income's lowered by either 10 or 20,000. Instead of buying a liability, buy an asset. Buy an asset.
And so what's that mean for cash flows?
But what the one thing or the question I had was, we've got clients that over the last 2 years or so haven't had to pay their student loan debt. So we've had people, like you said, that the money's kind of just dissolved in the ether, whether they go out more or whatever. But we do have some people that have actually put this money away, and they've beefed up their savings account. They've beefed up this account to go, all right, when they do cut it back on, now I've got a chunk I can pay off a lot more of my loan or pay the whole thing off with the forgiveness, which opens up their cash flow to do other things.
Yeah, I think that's, we have one client that's been doing some incredibly responsible things financially, taking this time. They've actually been continuing to make student loan debt payments, but instead of making it to their debt payment,
it's going to their savings account.
They've also been having another savings account that they've been funding to save up for a down payment on a home. Super excited for these guys because they're going to be able to merge those accounts now, and they're just going to be able to buy a home so much quicker. That's the beauty of this, guys. Like, and I know we're all on different sides of the fence politically, but really what this does for people, if it's used correctly, is if the opportunity is made the most of, this is an opportunity for people to accomplish some major things. Mm-hmm. And I mean, think about it. How long does it take? Like, if you're paying $200, $300 a month on your student loans, how long does it take you to pay back $10,000 at a 6%? I mean, that's years worth of work that's being solved for. That's an incredible opportunity. So let's generate some momentum. I would just say, like, if this is impacting you, it is the perfect time to come in and talk to us, talk to someone, but talk to us, and let's come sort through it. Let's come get into the weeds, get into your financial landscape and say, hey, are you aware these are your financial vital signs? This is how healthy you are, but your ambition and your drive and your desire, you should be healthier.
Right.
So how do we get from where you're at today to where you need to be in order to accomplish the things you want to accomplish? So let's use this as momentum, right? And
not use it to go buy a new shiny car. Don't take on $10,000 of debt just because you got it forgiven for something else, and unless you're doing something with an asset.
Just to be wildly clear, everybody has opinions, and I'll listen and respect anybody's thoughts, opinions. I know people carry this stuff close to their heart. And even I have my own, we have our own opinions, but at the end of the day, I am so thankful because I know so many people that have been stressed out because of their college debt. I'm so thankful that they are getting some some sort of break, and hopefully their anxiety comes down, and just hopefully
as long as we do something positive with it.
I'm all stoked about people being financially. So let's just wrap this up, but let's talk one more discussion topic. What can derail this for you? What can derail this for everyone? Circling back, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Guys, like, what could derail this for you is I've said this, we've both said this now several times. Be prepared to make a payment in January. Yep. If you have student loans, be prepared to pay your student loan bill in January. It is very possible that you will have a debt payment to make. Even if you think, hey, I only have $6,000, I qualify.
I think it's more likely than not.
Just be prepared. Be prepared to make that payment. Because the devil's in the details, yep. Right? Like we just don't know every piece of this yet. The other thing is, and this is going to be a fun ride. If you watch the news or if you're tied up in politics, there's a lot of questions being raised right now about the legality of this decision by
this
the White House.
Isn't 100% approved yet.
It's decided. But there is a process that people can sue decisions made, and legalities can be tested or decided on at state and federal court levels. So there's already discussions about states suing, whatever the decision's made. There could be appeals. The Supreme Court could ultimately have to decide on this.
Right.
It could be a process, and that's why it just could be delayed. And it ultimately could be decided. Like it very well could be decided that this is not something that is legal for the president to decide. Yep. To me, it does feel like more of something that it should be a congressional vote, congressional decision. But I just say that because it's being presented as such a sure thing.
It is being presented as a sure thing, but it's not. And
I mean, I hope it is. I hope I hope at this point it's not taken away from anyone. Just, I would say, if this impacts you, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Wait for the process to complete itself. Arguably, also, if this is something where you're like, oh, wait, this could be taken back from me. Like, here's the thing. For this process to be taken away, it means somebody has to like stand up and say, like, I'm in opposition of this. We are headed into kind of a midterm election cycle. I don't know that anybody's going to want to stick their neck out there to say, I disagree with this decision, right? Like that's kind of, we'll call it political suicide on some level. So you might hear a lot of pundits talking about it. There might be a few lawyers cooking something up. I don't know that it'll go to the point where some court is deciding this is illegal. If it is decided that way, then Congress will probably put together a package and just vote on it. Will it or won't it pass? Again, I think it would still pass ultimately. But just understand that this could be a very long process that ultimately could be derailed. Yep. It may not be something that you see happen by January 1st. So that's 40 minutes. That's a lot of information. We will continue to put out updates as much as we can. Again, if you're a subscriber to our monitoring and education program or a client of ours, we'll be sending out a link. We'll do a private call so you guys can ask like kind of one-to-one unique questions if you want to. And then also in the meantime, just also like feel free to just call us and reach out to us, email us, whatever you want to do. Yep. But yeah, a great place is to like follow us on socials or just subscribe to the podcast itself. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once you're subscribed, you'll get updated on when we post new content. And we will have probably a few more calls on this topic because there's a ton of stuff like we didn't really even get into that is just really unique and kind of whole other the student loan forgiveness plan. The you can go and volunteer your time and services or work in certain institutions or,
Oh yeah,
or places.
No, that's a whole nother
it's kind of a
podcast.
whole
We
nother
are
podcast. So
we went 15 minutes over what we thought we were going to go today
trying
already.
to keep it short, but there's just so much in here.
Yeah, there's so much.
Hopefully that's impactful. Hopefully it's good information. And if you have questions or comments, you're not the only one. Send it back to us, and we will get it out there for the masses. Josh, any parting thoughts?
Nope.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yep.
That's all. Y'all have a good day. We hope you learned from our conversation today. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes and not intended to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions of how it might be applicable to your specific situation, please reach out to your financial professional. Of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you regarding specific questions or applications to your individual financial situation. With that, here are a few disclosures. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. With that, thank you, and we look forward to having you back. Take care.